Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in-depth into my week number 8 tight end start or sit decisions. Inside today's video, I'll be going in-depth, doing a nice deep dive into every single matchup on the week from Thursday Night Football all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the tight ends in every single game. But before we could get on into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you do want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. And if you have any questions about week number 8, never hesitate but to ask down below in the comment section. I love to talk to you guys down there. And now we have also opened up a brand new Discord where we can talk about fantasy football. So if you want to join the new Discord, make sure you click down below in the video description or in the pinned comment to find that. So now, without further ado, let's get into my week number 8 of the 2022 fantasy football season. Tight end, start or sit decisions. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the Baltimore Ravens at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, for Mark Andrews last week, he's obviously going to be a start this week, but last week he was also a start and ended up laying a humongous dud in your fantasy football lineup. Despite it being National Tight End Day, Mark Andrews and a lot of the tight ends really did not play very well at all. This week, though, up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I assume Mark Andrews is going to bounce back. One bad game out of Andrews isn't going to sway me one bit. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Cade Otton will be listed as a sit, but if you are in a deeper league, I think you could consider Cade Otton to be a start. He's a decent piece in this offense, but Tom Brady doesn't quite use the tight end the same way as he would if Cade Otton just magically transformed into Rob Gronkowski. I think Cade Otton is a decent player, but at the end of the day, he's not a start-worthy tight end for me. Next up, we move to the game in London. Denver Broncos at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Greg Dulcich as well as Eazy-E Evan Ingram are going to be starts for me in this game. Evan Ingram's target total has definitely been going up and down all season. It's like a fucking roller coaster ride. But at the end of the day, Evan Ingram is still a tight end that is a big piece inside of this Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Now, I don't necessarily believe that this game will be very high scoring. The Denver Broncos defense is one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the National Football League right now. I think Evan Ingram still gets it done because he sees a bunch of targets, but ultimately I don't see him necessarily having a smash spot in this matchup. Greg Dulcich is definitely a solid tight end that you probably could have picked up off the waiver wire for this week, regardless of if it's Brett Rippon or Mr. Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited. It does appear that Nathaniel Hackett has installed a game plan that heavily likes to use the tight end, and Greg Dulcich at this point is the number 1 tight end on the team, so I think he is start worthy, as is Evan Ingram. Next up, we move to the beginning of the Sunday slate here with the Carolina Panthers at the Atlanta Falcons. Now, it does appear that PJ Walker, who's going to be the starter of the Panthers in this game, loves my boy Tommy Make That Ass Tremble, but at the end of the day, they still have Ian Thomas with Tommy Tremble, and PJ Walker really isn't all that great, and it's really hard to rely on the wide receiver weapons in this room already. Like, DJ Moore had a big game, and I'm still not fully trustworthy of him, so Ian Thomas and Tommy Tremble are sits. Kyle Pitts is going to be a start, but it is very hard for me to start Kyle Pitts every single week. This guy, every time you put him in your lineup, is like that video, if you guys have ever seen it, where the guy steps on a rake, and when you step on a rake on, the part where you actually rake the shit with, and it flies back up and it will smack you directly in the face. That's what it feels like starting Kyle Pitts every single Sunday. We know what's going to happen going into the game, but we try to imagine that Arthur Smith has an actual brain inside of his fucking skull, and he never does. They just run the ball 7 million times. The upside for Kyle Pitts is immense, but the downside, like the floor for Kyle Pitts is the fucking attic, and the ceiling is one of those tall-ass buildings in Dubai. I'm still starting Kyle Pitts, but he's not ranked very high in my rankings, if I'm being honest with you. Next up, we got the Bears at the Dallas Cowboys. In this one, I'm willing to start Dalton Schultz. Now, Dalton Schultz has dealt with a variety of injuries this season, but with Dak Prescott back, despite the fact that they weren't really throwing the ball all that much up against the Detroit Lions, I really thought when Dak came back, they'd kind of go back to that pass-heavy offense, but it appears that Kellen Moore wants to kind of take things steady with Dak Prescott. They kind of want to play ball like they played when Cooper Rush was under center and run the ball a lot and not make Dak throw too many times. I think he only threw about 25 times on Sunday up against the Lions. But even with that said, Dalton Schultz still got a bunch of targets. This week he gets the Bears defense. I know the Bears defense looked incredible up against the Bailey Zappaneta as well as Mac Jones on Monday Night Football, but I don't really think that's what the Bears defense is. The Bears have already made it a trade to trade away one of their key defensive pieces to the Philadelphia Eagles. So ultimately, I think Dalton Schultz has a pretty solid showing here on Sunday. Justin Fields and this Bears offense continue to look better week in and week out, especially over the last 3 weeks. But at the end of the day, I still do not feel as though I can rely on Cole Kmet. He's just not a key piece in this offense. And while Justin Fields has looked good, a lot of it is because of his rushing upside, and they haven't really been throwing the ball at a really high clip, so I just don't think I can trust Cole Kmet yet. It would take multiple weeks of Cole Kmet putting up numbers before I finally trust him. Next up, we got the Miami Dolphins at the Detroit Lions. In this game, I'm going to fire up Mr. Mike Licky on Mike Gesicki of the Miami Dolphins. Now, early on in the season, Mike Gesicki was basically irrelevant in this Dolphins offense. I know he had that one big game up against the Baltimore Ravens where he hit the crazy-ass gritty, but outside of that, he was not really doing much until recently, and Tua threw him the ball 7 times on Sunday Night Football up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It appears that the team wants to use Mike Gesicki more. His blocking has gotten slightly better. I'm not saying he's one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL, but that has allowed him to be on the field more, and I think Mike McDaniel finally realized that, hey, Mike Gesicki is never going to be this fierce blocker. He's never going to be like George Kittle, but we need to fucking use him, and Mike McDaniel's been using Mike Gesicki more. He dropped a wide open catch last week. It hit him in the fucking face mask. He should have caught that. He didn't. At the end of the day, he didn't have the best game, but he was targeted at a pretty high rate. So I like Mike Gesicki up against a putrid Lions defense. For the Lions, I'm going to roll out TJ Hawkinson just about every single week. Now, I know there is a narrative that with Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown healthy, that TJ Hawkinson still can't have a big game, but the Dolphins defense is banged up, and Hawkinson is still pretty reliable since he sees so many targets. So even if he doesn't have a huge game, he's probably still going to be start-worthy up against the Dolphins. Next up, we got the Arizona Cardinals at the Minnesota Vikings. In this one, Zach Ertz is a must-start tight end every single week. With how down bad the tight end position has been all year outside of, in reality, Kelsey and Andrews. I know Andrews just had a down game, but those are the two guys that are just consistent every single week that you can rely on. The top 5 tight ends, I feel like Zach Ertz should be in that conversation, and you almost could say that Zach Ertz is a top 3 tight end. Without Hollywood Brown, they have to rely on Zach Ertz. Kyler Murray should be able to throw him the ball a couple of times in this game, and Zach Ertz has big touchdown upside up against the Vikings in what could be an incredibly high-scoring game, as long as Kyler Murray doesn't stay up too late on Saturday night playing Call of Duty. Irv Smith going up against the Arizona Cardinals. Irv Smith is pretty hit or miss every single game, but again, the tight end position this year is not very good at all. So even if you're seeing a couple of targets every game and you're on an offense that I think could get into a high-scoring game, you're probably going to be considered a start-worthy tight end. Next up, we move to the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. For the Saints, I'm willing to fire out both tight ends for the team. Now, I understand that Taysom Hill is listed as a tight end, but in reality, this guy's more of a running back or just an offensive weapon. He should have his own place in your lineup. OW, offensive weapon up against the Las Vegas Raiders defense. I think we see a bunch of Taysom Hill. Jameis Winston has basically been benched for Andy Dalton. It was reported earlier today on Wednesday that Jameis Winston is healthy, yet Andy Dalton is still starting. And I think in an Andy Dalton-led Saints offense, we actually have a lot more opportunity to see Taysom Hill, and that's why I like him so much. Now, he's very high risk and pretty high reward as well, right? The risk is that, hey, if he doesn't run in a touchdown or throw in a touchdown, he's probably going to be a dud because he's not given a crazy amount of opportunities. It's not like he's still going to get 6 targets thrown to him in a given game, right? He doesn't catch the ball very much. So that's the risk. but the high reward is that he could score 3 fucking touchdowns. We've already seen it this season, so I like Taysom Hill, but he is incredibly risky. I would start Taysom Hill over Kyle Pitts. If you guys have any questions about how I have these guys ranked, which player would I play over the other player, make sure you ask down below in the comment section. And while you're down there, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as that like button. It helps me out a ton. So Juwan Johnson has been a guy that's been targeted a decent amount by Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, the Ginger Ninja under center. I think Juwan Johnson definitely is not a guy that's an upper echelon tight end start, but if he finds the end zone, he will be pretty decent. He's ranked closer to tight end 18, and tight end 18 and above, so tight end 1 through 18 are listed as starts, and then everyone who is 19 and into the infinity and beyond is listed as a sit. Foster Moreau is going to be a sit if Darren Waller magically fucking plays. I'm going to play him, but right now I don't feel super confident in that. Next up, we move to the New England Patriots at the New York Jumbo Jets. Now, with Zach Wilson under center, Tyler Conklin's upside has been completely fucking smashed by Hulk himself. It is unbelievable what has happened now. But Nick, the Jets are winning games. I know they're winning games. They beat my Dolphins. They run a train on these teams by running the ball. But now maybe with Breece Hall hurt, they start to throw the ball a little bit more. But even with that said, Zach Wilson has not looked very good. When cool Joe Flacco was under center, Conklin was having a fucking Thanksgiving feast. He was eating like one of those big-ass turkey legs like he's at medieval times. And now he's not even eating a kid's meal. He's just eating like the apple slices they give you with a kid's meal. So right now, if I'm being honest with you, I don't feel comfortable starting Conklin. And now with the unknown quarterback situation in New England, it might be the Zappaneta, it might be Mac Jones, then there's really no way we can start Hunter Henry because Hunter Henry was riding so hot with Zappy, but he's been ice cold this year with Mystic Mac Jones under center. But before we pivot to the next game, the Steelers at the Eagles, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor of today's video over at BetMGM. BetMGM is giving you a chance at $200 for free. Simply, all you have to do is click on the link in the video description or the pinned comment. And if any team hits a three-pointer tonight, you will win $200 in free bets. It's that simple. All you have to do is bet $10 on any pregame money line bet in the NBA, and you will get $200 if anyone makes a three-pointer in the NBA, which is guaranteed to happen. Now, you have to be a new user to BetMGM, and you have to sign up using the link in the video description or in the pinned comment to activate that offer. Again, bet $10 on any pregame money line in the NBA tonight, and you'll receive $200 in free bets if anyone hits a three-pointer in the NBA, which is guaranteed to happen, and your bet doesn't even need to win. So make sure you guys take advantage of this offer before it disappears because it's only going to be active for about 2 weeks. So make sure that you guys do check that out. Link in the video description and in the pinned comment. Next up, we move to the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Philadelphia Eagles, and in this one, I'm going to be firing up both tight ends. Pat Freiermuth has been a target fucking monster, a target hog. This guy is sucking in targets like his name was Mia Malkova, and here up against the Eagles defense, even though that Eagles defense is strong, I still think Kenny Pickett is going to force feed the ball to him. Even at the Dolphins game on Sunday Night Football, there were so many fucking Steelers fans there that every time this guy caught the ball, all you hear on TV is, Muth. The fans love him, and I love him. Pat Freiermuth in a good spot here up against the Eagles. Dallas Goedert is a must-start tight end every single week. Now, with A.J. Brown, as well as having Devontae Smith, the Slim Reaper, it is incredibly hard to kind of pick out the games where Goddard's really going to go off because they have so many targets. They also have Miles Sanders who can catch passes. And then, of course, when they're in the red zone, Jalen Hurts himself could just sneak one in. But at the end of the day, Dallas Goedert is still a viable piece in this offense. Jalen Hurts loves to throw the ball to him, so I think you got to start him every single week. This week against the Steelers looks like a good spot. Next up, we got the Atlanta Titans, the Tennessee Titans, going up against the Houston Texans in Houston. Both of these teams, they don't really throw to the tight end that much. O.J. Howard had a really big game early on the season, and outside of that, there's basically been a missing poster with this guy's face on it because he hasn't done shit. Austin Hooper was a guy I kind of talked myself into in the offseason because Tannehill's not necessarily a guy that doesn't not like to throw to the tight end. Tannehill's hurt going into this game, and they also use multiple tight ends, and so do the fucking Texans, so we're kind of in a spot where everyone's kind of irrelevant. And speaking of irrelevant, we got the Commanders at the Colts with more relevant tight ends. It would appear that Logan Thomas probably won't play on Sunday, even if he does play. I still don't want to play Logan Thomas or John Masturbates here up against the Colts. This game seems like it might be incredibly boring. Mo Alley Cox is going to have 2 to 3 games every single year where this guy takes the defense and skull fucks them, where he absolutely eviscerates them. And I'm not talking about like, oh, nice game, you scored a touchdown, you got 20 yards, you scored 10 points. No, I'm talking about a game where this motherfucker scores 2 or 3 touchdowns and just absolutely gives the defense the deep dick like it's a deep dish pizza in Chicago. I fully expect that to happen another time this year. It's already happened once, but it's impossible to predict. Maybe Sam Ehlinger likes to use the tight ends a little bit more. We shall see. But they also have Jelani Woods and a couple other tight ends, which makes Mo Alley Cox very difficult to predict. Next up, we got the San Francisco 49ers at the LA Rams, and we're finally back in the start column for some tight ends. George Kittle has finally awoken over the last 2 weeks. On National Tight End Day, him and Travis Kelce were basically the only tight ends that actually showed up. The funniest part about that is those are the 2 tight ends and Greg Olsen, third leg Greg, who doesn't play in the NFL anymore, obviously he's an announcer, but both of them kind of organized this tight end camp in the offseason, which is funny because on National Tight End Day, they kind of invented that too. Of course, they have great games. George Kittle up against the Rams. I expect yet another solid performance, despite the fact that things weren't too good early on the season. We all just know how talented George Kittle is, so he's a must start every week. Tyler Higbee, despite the fact that the LA Rams offense has been absolutely fucking putrid game in and game out. Watching Matthew Stafford go out there, it's like he sold his soul to the fucking devil to win a Super Bowl. It's embarrassing how bad he looks out there. Maybe coming out the bye, the guy's on fucking fire. He heats it up NBA Jam style, but I don't really expect that if I'm being honest with you. But hey, even when Matthew Stafford's been sunken donkey cock out there not playing very well, Tyler Higbee has still been a key target for him, and I think Higbee's a must-start tight end every week. Next up, we got the Giants at the Seahawks, and sadly, Daniel Bellinger got poked in the eye, and it's so bad that he had to have season-ending surgery for it. I hope he's okay. Anytime something happens to your eye, it's incredibly scary. It was even scary when it happened. I didn't even really understand what happened, but I hope he's okay. Daniel Bellinger, for a rookie, looked incredible. Normally, it takes these rookies a very long time to catch on in the NFL at the tight end position. It's incredibly hard to learn, and it appeared that Brian Daboll had a lot of plays drawn up for him. He seemed to really like Bellinger, so it is a tough scene that he's gone. Now Tanner Hudson's kind of the next man up, but I don't think he's necessarily the guy. He's kind of just listed as the guy right now. Maybe since the tight end was so valuable with Daboll with Bellinger, that maybe Hudson or one of these other tight ends really steps up, but right now I don't think we should be kind of trying to play that guessing game. Noah Fant as well as Will Dissly are going to be sits for the Seahawks. I think with DK Metcalf out, you could kind of talk yourself into Noah Fant, but neither of them have been super fantasy relevant as of recently. Next up, we move to Sunday Night Football. The Green Bay Packers at the No One Circles the Wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Dawson Knox and the Buffalo Bills were on bye last week, but prior to that week, we saw Dawson Knox finally have a good game up against the Chiefs. For the first 6 weeks, or the first 5 weeks of the season, I guess, because that was back in week 6, Dawson Knox was basically a fucking bust. Capital B-U-S-T for fantasy football. He was a guy that got paid the fat bag. He got the fat check before the season. They gave him one of those checks you get when you win the lottery, and it's like huge as fuck. That's basically what they gave him. They backed up the Brinks truck for him, and then they weren't really using him. But last week, or not last week because they're on bye, but their last game they used him. I'm hoping that continues, but I'm still not super confident in Knox because he's really only had one solid game. Robert Tonyan continues to be a solid target for the Packers. Now, the Packers got their ass clapped by the Washington Commanders last week. They don't really have too many weapons, so Robert Tonyan will continue to have usage. It just sucks that he has not really found the end zone this season. Final game here, we got Monday Night Football, the Cincinnati Bengals at the Cleveland Browns. Here I'm going to continue to fire out Hayden Hurst. Now, despite the fact that they have so many weapons, they got Titty Boy T. Higgins. They have Jamar Chase, the king of the gritty. I guess maybe Justin Jefferson is, or maybe Mike Gesicki is the king of the gritty. They also have Tyler Boyd, and they also have Joe Mixon and Hayden Hurst and Samaje Perine. But yet, somehow, despite the fact that they have so many weapons, they've got a loaded arsenal like they're fucking FPS Russia. Hayden Hurst still still continues to be a solid asset on their team. I'm not saying he's a smash play against the Browns, but I think if he finds the end zone, he could finish inside the top 8, top 5 at the position. So I like Hayden Hurst in this game. Harrison Bryant is now the replacement for David Njoku. David Njoku sadly gets injured. It does appear that he will be back at some point this season, but not in like the next 2 weeks, I would think. So that puts Harrison Bryant into the starting position at the tight end. I think he could be interesting, and I think he was a solid waiver wire pickup if you are in a deeper league or you lost David Njoku. I don't think he's awful, but I kind of want to see it with Jacoby Brissett before I believe it and throw him into my lineup. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as well as that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you do want to follow me on Twitter, right below me at NotoriousFNTSY. Make sure you check out that BetMGM no-brainer offer link in the video description and in the pinned comment. Again, bet $10 on any pregame moneyline bet in the NBA and you'll win $200 if anyone hits a three-pointer tonight in any game, and your bet doesn't even have to technically win in order for you to get to $200 in free bets, and you don't need to bet the $200 of free bets on the NBA. You can bet it in the NFL, MLB, PGA, anything. So thank you guys all so much for watching. I love you guys all so much. Make sure you check out our brand new Discord as well. Link in the video description. Love you guys so much. Have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy.